I'm delighted to say that Chris Large has, at short notice, come along and agreed to be grilled, if that's the right cooking terminology, about his background and his expertise. So, without further ado, I'm going to perhaps explain that we are going to be talking about something that Chris is very famous for, and that'll be probably in about 15 minutes, and we've got some rather unusual images to show you on the screen. But I wanted just to get a little bit of background first about you, Chris,
Sure.
And about where you came from. And was there a moment in your life when you actually, that eureka moment, that moment when you decided, I want to be in the restaurant industry?
Sure. Well, thank you to everyone for coming along, and thank you for having me. Well, when I was at school, I was 15 years old, and we were having careers day at school. And my careers teacher said to me, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "I want to be the skipper of a fishing boat." And he said, "I'm not sure I can get you onto a fishing boat, but leave it with me and I'll see what I can do." Obviously he couldn't. The insurance issues that are associated with trying to get a 15-year-old on a fishing boat didn't work out. So he put me into a seafood restaurant, one of the finest seafood restaurants in Australia, where I'm originally from. And part of doing your skipper's ticket is fish recognition, and in the restaurant was upstairs, downstairs was a fish market. So he decided that it was the best place for me, that I would learn fish recognition as part of learning on the job. So while I was there for the 2 weeks of work experience, they asked me to stay on as an apprentice chef, and I did. And in those 2 weeks, I saw what being a chef was all about, and it was almost like being on a pirate ship. You know, there's the fringes of society. It's the dangerous people, and I felt that I fitted in. So I was home, and that was where I've been ever since.
We've had a problem in this country that's been highlighted in the press about the issues of drug taking inside restaurants. Is that a big thing in Australia?
Not so much in Australia. When I came to London, I was astounded by the drug culture here. I mean, it is crazy. In Australia, it's nowadays it's changed. You know, it's more prominent. With the hours that chefs work, they feel that they have to rely on those kinds of things to get through. But yeah, I mean, in the upper echelons of the restaurant trade and in the industry, this with the Michelin star grade, I mean, it's not that prominent. You know, in the wide spectrum it is, but yeah, it is quite prominent in the industry, I have to say.
Okay, so you were almost forced into the industry. You fell upon it by accident more than anything else.
I did.
And did people try and put you off when you said, I want to do this?
Everybody. Everybody I spoke to, the head chef of the restaurant I worked at, everybody that I came into contact with said, "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" At the time, I was at school. I didn't enjoy school at all. It was boring. I didn't really want to be there. It was more important for me to get out and explore who I was and what I wanted to do. And just it gave me that opportunity to do so. So yeah, everybody tried to put me up. So.
And you started from the very beginning, washing dishes and whatever?
Well, I mean, I was very fortunate. I mean, I was the first restaurant I worked in was a seafood restaurant, right where was when Australia was defending the America's Cup in Australia. So the restaurant was 300 seats. It was busy every single service that we had. So I was forced into handling food from day one. Obviously I had to wash dishes, clean mussels, all those lowly paid, horrible jobs that you do when you start in the kitchen. But it's normal. That's where you start at the bottom and very, 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 very slowly work your way up. So, which I have.
Do you have regrets about that? Now you've been through that and you've had great success in your career. Do you have regrets about starting in that way? Would you have rather have gone to a college and perhaps learned at college?
Well, I mean, I originally started in the restaurant, and that's where it originally happened. But then I spent 4 years at cooking school in Australia. So it was then an apprenticeship. So 4 years at cooking school and on-the-job training at the same time. So 1 day a week at cooking school and the rest in the job. So 7 days a week, 1 day at school, the rest at work.
I do say a lot of college courses that you go on, when you actually go into the real world, it's very different, and suddenly it's a learning curve that's unexpected. Is that what happened?
Well, absolutely. I mean, what you learn in cooking school is the traditional. When I was at cooking school, anyway, it was traditional French techniques which are invaluable. But when you actually go into the position, into kitchens, you usually throw all that information away and learn what the industry standard is, how you do things in the industry. Everything's about shortcuts and doing things quickly, and not always the right way, but it is the way that things are done in kitchens generally.
And would you encourage other people to come into the industry now?
It's a tough question. People come to me and they say, I love cooking, I want to be a chef. And I say, well, if you love cooking, don't be a chef. I mean, you end up hating it, or you end up hating yourself. It's one of those things. It gets in your blood, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can love food and you can love the industry, but there's nothing you can do if cooking's in your blood. You can try and run away, which I have. You can try and run away and do something else, but if it's there, you can't deny it, you can't escape it. It's in your blood, and you have to.
Now, it's interesting you say this, because we had a chat before you came on stage, and you were talking about the television program that you're working on at the moment, and this is actually about people who don't like cooking. Could you explain about that?
Yes, well, the way that I see the television portrayal of cooking, it's geared towards people who like cooking. If you're a foodie, if you're really into food. But what's the issue is that I see in television especially is that it caters towards those people, but you're missing out on a vast majority of the population who aren't involved in food, who don't like to cook, who don't know how to cook, and don't want to because they think it's difficult. I wrote a show about 5 years ago that we filmed in Canada. I was very fortunate to go over to Canada and film, and it's geared towards people who hate cooking, generally single men, between 18 and 35. What they don't see is that cooking gives you opportunities. I mean, not just as a profession, but if you cook for a woman, for instance, they think you're fantastic. I mean, I've been very fortunate in that department, not because of the way I look, I can tell you that. I think it's a basic human need to be able to feed yourself, and this is what we try and the show tries to address, is that you should be able to feed yourself, and it just shows how easy cooking can be.
It's quite interesting when you mentioned that every lady in the audience smiled, and all the men are just completely nonplussed by that. And are we going to see this program in the UK, do you think?
Well, I recently filmed a part of a show with, I can't think what his name is now. He's the host of America's Got Talent. Mariah Carey's husband, can't think what his name is, Nick Cannon. Recently filmed some stuff with him, and the producer of that show wants to take me to America to film some stuff for the Food Network. So, talk is cheap. When the contract is signed and there's some money in my bank account, then I'll believe that it's happening. Up until then, well, I'll just keep on doing what I'm doing.
Okay, and is there a catchy title to the show you're going to put on?
Well, the original working title, excuse me if this offends anybody, but the original working title was How to Get Women into Bed. Purely because, there's a reason for it, purely because if you're flicking through the channels and the TV and there's a title that says How to Get Women into Bed, everybody would stop and look at it. So,
now the men are smiling, it's interesting.
But the working title that's on the show is Stay for Coffee. So,
okay.
No.
You toned it down.
We toned it down just slightly. I think the Stay for Coffee sort of gives a brief outline of what the show is about.
Okay, so you then came to England straight away after Australia?
I spent 12 years cooking in Australia. I've been here for 15 years, arrived here in 1999.
Okay, and were you a qualified chef at that stage?
Absolutely, yeah. I started when I was 15 years old, so by that stage I qualified when I was 18, so I finished my cooking catering college and qualified as a chef when I was 18, and been cooking for 12 years when I came here, so yeah.
Okay, so where did you go? Who did you apply to? Where did you go?
Well, when I first arrived in London, I arrived here with £200. I had no idea, had no job to go to, had nowhere to live, just nerve-wracking, but I just came here and hoped for the best. I got a job within the first week that I was here at a place in Covent Garden called Orso, Italian restaurant.
Does anybody know Orso? It's been there a long, long time.
It's great.
Basement.
Not so much anymore, I'm not there, but and then from then on I've been very, very fortunate. I've worked in France for 2 years, lived over there for 2 years, worked with some great chefs, really inspirational people. Martin Wilson, the first chef I worked with.
At Orso?
At Orso. He was He was an amazing chef, the most incredible person I've worked with. Very, very passionate, very involved in what he does. When I first came and I saw what they were doing there, and I went for the interview and they were hanging their own meat and using pitch and ingredients that I'd never seen before, I was a bit scared. But just very inspirational. Working with people that passionate it rubs off on you.
It's interesting you say that he was perhaps the most inspirational person you worked with, because I know that at a later stage you worked with Jamie Oliver.
I did, yeah. I spent some time with Jamie Oliver. Very, very fortunate there. I was working for Sticky Fingers in Kensington, Bill Wyman's restaurant, and American diner sort of style. When I went there, the business wasn't doing so well, and then we sort of worked on things and turned things around, introduced a home delivery service and changed things over the course of about 3.5 years. And then had the opportunity to go and work with Jamie, opening a new brand with him called Union Jacks. It was flatbreads or pizzas, as they like to call it. So worked with him for about 8 months. For the first month, it was in the test kitchens, working on the recipes and making sure that those were sound, and Chris Bianco as well. It was an amazing experience. I mean, Jamie is inspirational in a completely different way. I mean, he's the hardest working person in the industry I've ever seen. Love him or hate him, you can't deny that he works hard. He doesn't have to. I mean, he's got enough money that he would never have to work another day in his life. But he's incredibly hard working, and he deserves the success he has. So
it's quite interesting that you say this, love him or hate him, because he has got a persona on television, that cheeky chappy thing, and I think sometimes you can have a character like that that's very strong can begin to grate on you after a while. Can we just have out of interest, a show of hands, how many people are fans of Jamie Oliver, the TV personality? Hands up, please. And how many people aren't fans of Jamie Oliver? Okay, so it's probably about half and half. I must say, and I hope I'm speaking for everybody here, we're admirers of what he does in the industry, and the schooling work he's done with trying to improve the school children's diet, and so it goes on. So there we are. Okay, of the people you've worked with and those that have influenced you, I'm going to see if you can give us a few nuggets of advice that they've given you and you've subsequently taken on board.
Okay, well, the first chef I worked with, it was absolutely nuts, completely crazy, raging alcoholic. But he said, you can have anything that you want in the industry as long as you're willing to work for it, which is, what I found. It is. I mean, this industry, you can have exactly what you want, and his advice was invaluable. I've continued to use that over the course of my career. Other advice is, lead by example. Don't. All my staff that I've ever worked with, if there's a drain that's blocked, if there's a toilet that's blocked, I'm the first person with my hand down it. Not the best thing you want to hear out of a chef's mouth, but I usually wear gloves as well. But it's lead by example, and if your staff see you're willing to do anything that you ask them to do, mop a floor, sweep a floor, then they'll be more inclined to do anything that you ask them to do. Generally, I've always heard, keep your eyes and your ears open. Always learning on the job is the most key thing to everything that I've done. I've been very fortunate to work with some great people, and they always say, keep your eyes and your ears open, because you never know when you're going to learn something. I've learned something from KPs before, people that are fresh into the industry, seeing things with fresh eyes. I've been in the industry now 27 years, and it's, every day I'm learning something, and if you're not learning something, then it's pointless doing something, really. So,
Okay, and prior to this interview we had a quick chat, and you said to me that you had this, I think, a refreshing attitude of never saying no to any opportunity that comes across. Where does that come from? Why don't you sit down and think, should I be doing this? Why do you just say yes and do it?
It's a scary proposition going into something that you don't know and that you don't understand. But it's, if you don't ever say yes to opportunities that are beyond what you think that you can do, you never know how far you can go. You never know what you're capable of until you push yourself beyond the limits of what you think you can do. Self-limiting belief is what holds most people back. It's scary to do things like this. It's to go onto TV and talk on TV and explain things. But at the same time, if you can never win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. So it's by saying yes to every opportunity that comes along, it's given me some fantastic opportunities to meet great people and do amazing things, travel the world, and yeah, I'm exceedingly happy with the scary attitude of saying yes.
Okay, now this will lead on rather nicely to the next parts of this conversation, but you said earlier that you managed to turn around Sticky Fingers. Now, does everybody know what Sticky Fingers is, or was, I believe now? Do you know the restaurant Sticky Fingers? So Rolling Stones, Bill Wyman. Okay, now, what was going on at the time, and what did you do to turn it around?
Okay, so there were some issues in the kitchen. There was no leadership in the kitchen basically, and I was working with a company. I worked with a company called Maxwell's that owns Sticky Fingers. So I'd worked with them before, and they gave me a call. I was doing something completely different at the time. They gave me a call and said, "We need your help. Can you help us?" I went into the restaurant. The kitchen was all over the place. None of the staff were committed to what they were doing. So I went in, we fired the people that were causing the trouble. I mean, catching somebody in the cool room smoking a cigarette is probably the worst thing that you can possibly imagine in the kitchen, but that happened. Just basically inspired the guys. We integrated a new kitchen Bible, the new recipes, so that everyone was working off the same page. It's basically giving the staff a belief in what they're doing and a reason for being there. Retaining staff and having staff do what you want them to do is the hardest part of any restaurant business. It's easy to go into a restaurant and take a job and get the money and then leave 6 months later. But retaining the people that are the core to the business, which I think is the staff, is the hardest part. And if you can have the staff believe in the brand, believe in what they're doing, and be part of it, then the staff are going to do exactly what you ask them to do. So,
okay, now at that point, I wonder if there's anybody in the audience who has any questions so far. Please raise your hands, and we'll bring a mic over to you, and we can answer those as we're going along. Any particular questions at the moment? Okay.
Put them on a tennis ball and throw them at me. It's fine.
After that, I believe well, I don't know. Did you go straight on to Honky Tonk restaurant?
From Sticky Fingers, I went on to Jamie Oliver. Was there, opened the new brand, trained the new staff, training the new staff for the next 4 that opened. And then from there I went on to another brand called Supper Club that was in Notting Hill. So Supper Club was a completely different beast altogether. It was a different menu every week, themed menu. Amazing opportunity because I could do whatever the hell I wanted, which is very rare in this industry. Use ingredients that most people hadn't come into contact with before. Do crazy things, set things on fire, use lots of dry ice. I mean, anything. There was no limit to what I could do, which was great. So from there, while I was at the Supper Club, I was approached to open a new brand of restaurant. Honky Tonk was one of the owners of Supper Club, was opening a new brand. So American Diner. So when we originally spoke about it, I said, I don't want to do the same as everybody else is doing. I don't want to buy cheap ingredients and sell it for an exorbitant price just to get the margin. I want to do something that's different. I want to use different cooking techniques. That's less fat. The oven baked rather than deep fried. And that was how we went into it. So.
And it's worth mentioning the location of Honky Tonk. I think it's Chelsea.
The original one was in Chelsea. The second one was in Clapham.
So you knew you'd have a fairly wedged up clientele who are coming into the doors.
Yeah, around the local area, there's some people with a little bit of money.
And I'm assuming that had you opened Honky Tonk in I don't know, some provincial town in the high street, you wouldn't have gone down that path with the expensive ingredients, am I right?
Well, it's interesting. It's the way that I think about food is, I've got 2 young children at home. We have all organic meats and organic vegetables. So I wanted to have something that we did that I would feel comfortable that my children could eat at, that I would feel happy that they would eat the food. And it's, there's a lot of in the industry, especially with American food, there's a lot of deep frying and those cooking techniques. There's a lot of fat. And I wanted to have something that was different from that. That's sort of going more into the current culture of healthier eating, the slow cooking, and using those kind of principles rather than the traditional principles of American food.
Okay, and were you influenced by any other chefs who were doing that at the time, or?
Well, I've worked in American diners before, so I see that the way the industry is, and the industry is sort of heading down that route that people are eating healthier. So no one person influenced my thinking on that. It's just my own belief system that if I wanted to have something myself and I wanted to have that style of food, that I wanted to make something that for other people that believe the same as I did.
Chris, I think it was during your time at Honky Tonk that somebody came up with a rather unusual idea.
They did.
Tell me about this. How did this start?
Okay, so while I was at Honky Tonk, there was a PR company that approached me and said, Groupon have approached us and said they've sold 5 million vouchers here in the UK, and they want to do something that's a publicity stunt, or something to show people that we're doing something for doing this milestone. And they wanted to create the world's most expensive burger, and they said, could you do it? And I said, sure, if you've got the money, I'll do anything you want, So they gave me a budget, and I spent 3 weeks working with different products from around the world, and after 3 weeks we came up with the final recipe that is the Glam Burger.
So how many people on the team working on this product?
Well, it was me, basically. It was a lot of hours, a lot of headaches, a lot of nightmares, a lot of things that didn't taste so good. But it was over 3 weeks. I went to Australia for a week as well, so had some time to sort of mull that over while I was there and talk to some people in the industry there. But I had some other friends. Everyone I know is in the industry, so I talked with everybody I know to see what their input was, and then came up with the final product.
So really the idea was a marketing ploy. It was a case of putting Honky Tonk on the map.
Well, it was more about it was more about putting Groupon on the map. And we were approached, as Honky Tonk, or the chef at Honky Tonk, to create this, because we were, I think, one of Groupon's leading stars. We were doing a deal with Groupon at the time, so they'd heard what I'd done in the past, and they asked if I could do it. So yeah.
Just out of interest, what was the price tag on this burger?
It was £1,100.
£1,100 for a burger. Thank you very much. And out of interest, did you sell any?
Well, no. Well, we did, but we didn't. It was never intended to sell. I mean, there was a lot of criticism when it first came out. A lot of feedback on Twitter and Facebook. People saying, "How can you create the world's most expensive burger when people are dying of hunger in the world?" And the reason that we didn't want to do this on the menu was because there would have been wasted ingredients. Having ingredients that are as expensive as the ingredients that we used, having those there and having them in house, it creates waste. And that would have fed into that argument. So to sort of circumvent that argument and say, well, we're not creating waste, we're not wasting anything, we're doing it for the burger that we're creating on that day. We did, I think, 15 of them altogether. It was mostly for media. For the Times, we did 3 for American television, 1 for Canadian television. There was Japanese television. It was the press from around the world came, and so they bought the burgers. But individuals, the thing that we had was that people that could afford to buy a £1,100 burger expect it to be available when they want it. I want the £1,100 burger. I'm coming tomorrow. We were like, well, it takes a week to order the ingredients in. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to wait a week. But if you've got that kind of money, you want it instantly, and they weren't prepared to wait a week. So that's what we're up against. So,
but in terms of publicity, it couldn't be better. It was an amazing story.
No, it was. I mean, no one expected it to be as big as it was. Nobody. I mean, we were expecting some press in the UK, but when it went to America and Japan, and it went crazy, and to have those guys.
Went global.
It did, yeah.
Can you stand up and just point at some of the
absolutely
ingredients of this?
It is a bit of a behemoth, but believe it or not, it's a single portion burger. So we started out with just a plain brioche bun, which was amazing, and the reason we chose the bun was because it holds together well. There's a lot of juicy ingredients in this burger, so the bun has to be textured enough to be able to hold those ingredients and still be edible. So we started out with some just baby gem lettuce on the bottom just to protect the bun. But we had a burger sauce that we created that had Japanese matcha, which is a Japanese green tea powder that used to be just the emperor of Japan could afford. It's exceedingly expensive. It's really, really good. And the reason I chose to use it in the burger is it's very good for digestion as well. So if you're eating a burger that costs £1,100 with the richness that it was, you have to be able to digest this thing. So that's the reason we use the matcha powder in the burger sauce as well. So then we use some heritage tomatoes, really lovely tasting tomatoes. It's the old school tomatoes that actually taste like tomatoes, not like the nowadays where everything's hydroponically grown and it tastes like cardboard. So yeah, heritage tomatoes. Then we had the actual burger itself, which was Wagyu beef and New Zealand venison. And in the centre of the burger we had a black truffle brie. I experimented with some other cheeses as well. There's another cheese that's the most expensive in the world. It's called arse cheese. It's made from donkey milk. But putting arse cheese in a burger is probably not the best thing to use, so I decided against that. The flavour profile was fantastic, but just the name of arse cheese is not something you want to put in a burger. So we use black truffle brie. So when the burger cooks, it has that liquid pocket in the centre, Juicy Lucy as they call it. So that's the actual burger itself. Then on top of the burger we had some British bacon. The reason we use British bacon is because Britain produces the best bacon and the best pork in the world. It's the best animal husbandry in the world for bacon and pork in general. So British bacon with Canadian maple syrup cooked into it. And then we use Canadian lobster that was cooked in Iranian saffron. So if you know anything about Iranian saffron, I mean, I wouldn't want to go and collect it with some bombs going off over there. So exceedingly expensive again. Some Brazilian mango, and then topping all that we've got some beluga caviar, exceedingly expensive again, £4,200 a kilo or something ridiculous. And then on the top we've got a hickory smoked duck egg that's coated in gold leaf, and then some white truffle shaved over the top, and then the butter's got the gold leaf on the top brushed on as well. So as you can see, it's completely over the top ridiculous, but
I can't see any chips.
No, we didn't have. But that was one of the first questions that people asked. Do I get chips for that? And I said no, they're extra. So sorry.
But although you didn't sell many, it sort of almost put Honky Tonk on the map firmly, didn't it? It's been a phenomenal marketing campaign for them.
Indeed, I mean, yeah, for as many years as I can remember, I've wanted to go into TV, and it's one of those industries that's very difficult to get into, and it's given me a leg up, if you like, a footstep into that industry, which is fantastic, and also Hot Honky Tonk no end. I mean, it was incredible PR and marketing, went viral. It was incredible. It was very, very lucky the way that it went. I mean, that it caught on the way that it did around the world. I mean, no one was expecting it.
And what's the plan with the group Honky Tonk?
Well, I mean, I've left the Honky Tonk now. I've got out into the world to explore whatever's next. So I finished there on the 31st, so they're going to do whatever they're going to do now. I'm looking for the next opportunity, so who knows? I don't know. Whatever comes next.
Never say no.
Oh, absolutely. Just I'm opening myself up to every possibility and talking with different people now, so who knows?
Do we have any questions?
You mentioned earlier that talking about healthy eating being trending, and you said slow cooking is healthier, or what sort of things do you mean?
Well, I mean, slow cooking is one of the key things, key words in the industry at the moment. Slow cooking is things like you're cooking at a low temperature. The benefits of slow cooking are that you're retaining more of the nutrients in the food because you're cooking at a lower temperature, and you also get a higher yield because you're not cooking at such a high temperature. You're not losing so much of the moisture content in the foods that you're cooking. And also, over a longer period of time, when you're slow cooking something, the flavour of the foods that you're cooking are higher. So it's understandable that that's the way that the industry's going. It's better taste, more nutritional value, and a better yield as well. So,
are you an advocate of us eating less meat but paying more for it?
It's a tough argument. I mean, it's the environment that we live in at the moment, where people are finding it harder to make ends meet. It's difficult for me to say that that's the way it should be. I think vegetables are neglected. I think that personally, I have organic fruit and vegetables and meat for myself and my children. We tend to use a lot more vegetables because of that, because the meat's exceedingly expensive. But yeah, it's sort of coming up with creative ways to do things. I mean, lots more the pulses, the beans and things like that we use, and vegetables. It's the things that you can create with lots of casseroles. I mean, I grew up with casseroles. My parents, they worked 2 jobs. They love things like the pressure cooker. You put a casserole in, 15 minutes later you have a perfect casserole. The meat's nice and tender. So it's those are the kinds of things that we eat at home. Lots of soups and things like that. It's difficult for me to say that people on lower income should spend more on their food because it's difficult. Maybe it's a really difficult stage that people are going through. But if you can afford it, why not?
Do we have any more questions? No? Okay. Well, in that case, it's for me to say thank you very much indeed at short notice, Chris, to come along and join us.
My pleasure.
And a big, warm welcome and thank you to Chris.
Thank you. Thank you very much.